Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Porch City Plate podcast. My name is Chris. I'm your host. I apologize for the missed episode 2 weeks ago. We had a little technical difficulty with some of the program, and sometimes that kind of stuff happens working with technology. So that's just how those kind of things go sometimes. But do not fret, we're back and back with a sponsor. Yes, our first sponsored episode. This episode of the Porch City Plate podcast is sponsored by Table Needs. Table Needs is a game-changing point-of-sale system transforming small businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, food trucks. They're not just about transactions. They're about making businesses thrive. I got a little teaser for all my restaurateurs and managers out there listening. Table Needs has got something special that they're offering you, our listeners. I think it's something that could really revolutionize the way that you think about your menu. So stay tuned for more on that. And now enjoy this episode with Steve Joynt. Welcome to the Porch City Plate podcast presented by Bienville Bikes Food Tour. The Porch City Plate podcast is serving up the food, history, and people in Mobile, Alabama for people who love the Porch City. I'm your host, Chris Andrews, and I'm always excited to talk about Mardi Gras in Mobile. And today we've got our first ever returning guest to the podcast, Steve Joynt. Steve joined us, if you remember last year, episode 4, the 4th episode we ever did of this podcast. And so brought him back again this year to preview the 2024 Mobile Mask magazine and what to expect from the Carnival season. The Mobile Mask has been around since 2012, its digital inception, and print magazine for over 10 years, and just the magazine's continued to evolve, of course, and in my mind, Mobile Mask and Steve is the authoritative voice on all things Mardi Gras Mobile. So whether it's you pick up that magazine, that big, beautiful magazine that you got, and of course the huge following that he has on Facebook. So Steve's always keeping us up to date on the parade intel and stories. So Steve, welcome back to the Porch City Plate podcast.
I'm back, baby.
Love it.
I'll be back.
In my mind, it's never too late to recap 2023. So, I think every Carnival season always brings us something new. What about some notable additions that you found last season, 2023, in Mardi Gras?
Well, I think the favorite that I listed was the the Porch City Samba School. This was a band that showed up. They didn't even give me any warning. They just showed up, and they're very percussion oriented, very Caribbean, and kind of just funky. And it's a loose gathering of people who just like to beat on things rhythmically, and it's like a party going by. You don't even have to be a musician to be part of the group. There's like a couple of ladies with the butterfly wings twirling around and stuff like that, and it's fun, and I want to see more of that type of group spring up, because
we've been kind of missing that, haven't we?
I think what people don't realize is you can do that.
Right.
You really can. I mean, if you think, hey, we should start a group where we wear really big, thick scarves, and we dance with our scarves, and we'll call ourselves the Scarves. You can do that. It doesn't cost anything, and all you really need to do is contact a couple of groups and say, hey, we got this weird group. Can we be in your parade? And all they can do is say no.
Yeah, but likely they're going to say yeah.
But a few of them are going to, especially if you say, oh, by the way, we're free.
Right.
They'll be like, oh, well, let me write you down here and get your number and whatnot. Yeah, sure, you're in. It's just not, it doesn't have to be official. You don't have to go through anybody. You can just do it.
Yeah, that's the best part about Mardi Gras, too. So it's homegrown, just, authentic kind of things like that. Uh-huh. And it kind of reminds me, too, that the Samba School, that kind of reminds me of Joe Kane a little bit, kind of going back to our roots.
It has that highly democratic, anybody welcome type feel to it.
Yeah, I like that. What was some of the feedback from your 2023 issue of the Mobile Mask magazine? I know we previewed it last year, and I know the big highlight to me was the Merry Widow story that you featured, kind of the behind the scenes of the Merry Widows that really was the first time that ever been talked about. What was some of that feedback you got?
That was a biggie. A lot of people really enjoyed the widows story because it talked about the widows as a mystic society. I tried to address them as a mystic society and tell you where they came from and when and how it progressed and kind of what their philosophy is. And, oh, by the way, the number of members is limited and stuff like that,
right,
just like any other group. But they also happen to be pretty much the most secretive mystic society of them all. But so it took a long time to actually get them to the point where they were ready to do that story. But I think they were. The feedback from them was good. They were glad they did it, and they were happy with how it turned out.
That's good. I want to get your thoughts on the Porch Parade. I know we haven't, I don't know. It feels like it hasn't been as talked about, maybe as publicized as in the last couple of years. But is it losing steam or is it growing? What's some of the talk on that?
I think the newness has worn off. The fact that it was the only game in town during the pandemic also is no longer the case. But I think it's kind of one of those things where if participation is up at this level at the get-go and during the pandemic and all that you really kind of your best hope is that participation after that may only fall to say 75%. Maybe it's fallen a little below that even, but that still means there's way more participation than there was before the pandemic. So I think that's kind of how it's going right now. Those who organized it during the pandemic are still organizing it. They're still doing the maps of where you can find highly decorated houses, and there are still people renting figures from Craig Stevens. But now, like if you go to Pops Midtown, they have flowers, big flowers that Craig Stevens' people have made, float flowers. They look like they came right off of a float that you can buy and put on your house anytime you want to. Certainly better do it for Mardi Gras.
Right.
But so decorating your house, and of course you're talking to somebody who out in Wemo, I've been decorating my house for Mardi Gras for years and years, and people go, Mardi Gras. But and so it's still out in Wemo. It's kind of few and far between. But here in downtown Midtown, I think it's gotten even bigger. Although I will point out the very first issue of my magazine, I always do a 2-page photo spread of something. There's always a theme to it. My wife and I will say, okay, well, what are we going to do for the photo spread next year? The first year I did it, it was decorated houses in Midtown, downtown, because there were already a number of folks who decorated. But I think the Porch Parade upped the ante, and especially creating those maps has made it more noticeable.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool thing too, especially for out of towners who were here during Mardi Gras.
Oh yeah.
I think that could be an added little, little lanyard for people that are tourists here during Mardi Gras. I wanted to ask you about also, we lost Jimmy Buffett this year, and Jimmy Buffett's got a really cool Mardi Gras story, and you mentioned it on your Facebook page after his passing. Tell us about that story about Jimmy Buffett growing up here in Mobile and experiencing Mardi Gras.
Yeah, he grew up here. He loved Mardi Gras. He wrote a song called Serpentine, and he wrote extensively in one of his books about his time at Mardi Gras. And one of the organizations, the KORs, one year, I forget the year, they had their theme was Margaritaville or something like that. And Jimmy essentially snuck onto a KOR float. He was costumed in a parrot-like fashion, and he threw stuff off the float that day, and he hung out with the KORs that day, and that is part of their lore. That's one of their great stories, is the time Jimmy Buffett came and rode on a float with him. So he's always felt very connected. However, I think we all know Jimmy had mixed feelings about his town, about his hometown, and how they wouldn't play his music on the radio and that kind of stuff. But he's never said anything other than really good things about Mardi Gras.
Right.
And by the way, the dog parade in Fairhope this coming Mardi Gras, their theme will be a Jimmy Buffett-oriented theme.
Nah, that's gonna be good. That's always a huge parade in Fairhope.
And I think he would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah. That fits his style for sure.
You'll surely see a golden retriever dressed as a parrot.
All right, I can't wait for those photos.
Yeah.
I was watching College Game Day a couple weeks ago, and one of the signs, it was Alabama LSU, and one of the signs that somebody had in the crowd, one of the college students held up, and it said that Mardi Gras was invented in Alabama. Kind of a jab at LSU and Louisiana, of course, when they were in Tuscaloosa. Now, I don't want to go into the word debate there of the inaccuracies or accuracies of what he was talking about, but kind of a lot of the pushback from that sign was nobody thinks about going to Alabama for Mardi Gras. That's kind of their definitive answer to anything when it comes to Mobile and Mardi Gras. And now my experience from giving the food tours has been completely different, and I'm sure yours has too, just being on the parade route. What is your perspective on that?
Well, and you're right. When I see New Orleans folks on Twitter, I still call it Twitter. I refuse to call it anything other than Twitter.
It's Twitter.
You're right. That's what they often say. Oh, who goes to Mobile for Mardi Gras? Well, a lot of people do. And back in the day, let's start with back in the day, early 1900s. The train companies ran big ads for this train or that train coming to Mobile for Mardi Gras. And there were just literally hundreds and thousands of people would come by boat and train into Mobile for Mardi Gras. And that's why Mardi Gras grew, because they started going, well, we got to give these folks something to do when they get here. It can't just be one day. And so you got the floral parade started that way. You got, King Felix was started for that very reason. So things started expanding because so many visitors came from out of town. These days, when I see those comments, I just kind of smile, because I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's why when I'm on the parade route, and believe me, I'm always on the parade route, that half the time I meet either somebody on my left or somebody on my right. I meet somebody from out of town, and they may have, like we met this couple. I forget where they were from. They were from Birmingham, something like that. But their daughter came down for something to do with the School of Math and Science. They were having some competition or something like that, and the parents came down with her the year before and said, "Oh, let's see what this Mardi Gras is all about." And they had so much fun that when she wanted to do the competition again, they said, "Oh yeah, you're doing the competition because we're going back to Mardi Gras."
Right.
And this time they brought like a big old sign with them with lights on it and stuff, and it's like, they look like they'd been doing it forever. But yeah, I run into folks from out of town all the time.
I do too.
All the time.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to people that maybe they don't know what you do? They don't know what you do for a living, and their first time they're talking about Mardi Gras. They don't know that Mardi Gras happens in Mobile. How do you explain the festivities and the atmosphere to someone that doesn't know?
First of all, I say, how much time do you have?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it takes a little while.
Yeah.
And, there are parts of this country that do some kind of Mardi Gras or have tried to do some kind of Mardi Gras. And part of the problem, I think, is they don't really know why it exists. So they don't really know why they're doing it. It's a little bit on the Cinco de Mayo side. Hey, let's have some tacos and some margaritas and call it Cinco de Mayo. We have no idea what Cinco de Mayo is actually all about. And so let's throw some beads and have something to drink and call it Mardi Gras. Well, you really don't know what Mardi Gras is. And, it's not some big secret or anything, but yeah, it takes a couple of minutes to learn why it exists and what the point is and why it has to be at that time of year, and Fat Tuesday has to be on that particular day.
Yeah, it's a large layer to peel back for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people believe, for example, that it's a Catholic holiday. Well, it's not a Catholic holiday, but it absolutely grew up in the shadow of the Catholic Church. One goes right along with the other. And the prominence of the Catholic Church on the Gulf Coast and the fact that the Gulf Coast, a big swath of the Gulf Coast was settled by the French, is a big, big reason that Mardi Gras grew up strong, especially between New Orleans and here.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I love having you on, is all those little historic details that you give. Love that. Let's talk about the 2024 Mardi Gras season and specifically your magazine, the 2024 issue of the Mobile Mask. Talk about the cover and what's inside the pages this year.
I want you to know, as we're speaking, it's not finished yet. So it's like this big thing, and if I could physically manifest myself, my brain would be swelled up to here because there's so much of the magazine is like in my head right now.
But the cover is finished.
Cover is finished. Cover is by Lucy Gafford. Lucy, who is the executive director of the Mobile Arts Council and a very, very talented artist, and she lives not far from me, and she has given me some good tips on holiday yard decoration. We kind of go back and forth and trade tips on that. But Lucy is a little bit fascinated. We'll say fascinated by squirrels, and she started a Joe Kane walking group called the. I'm gonna mess it up.
The Mystic SOBs.
It's a Society of Bienville Squirrels or something. Yeah, Bienville Squirrels. And so I never really got an answer from her as to why. She likes lots of little animals, but squirrels are just a favorite. So there are very definitely squirrels and cardinals and things like that. So it's a very nature-oriented cover, but it's pretty awesome.
Every year, you've also got a really cool historic history feature. What have you delved into this year?
This coming year, the story is going to be called "The Three Burials of Joe Kane," and I think a lot of people may know that Joe got buried twice. They're not necessarily clear on the fact that Joe got buried 3 times.
All right, I can't wait to read it.
It's really interesting stuff, and we've got some cool pictures.
That's cool. All right, so I'm excited about that. I'm curious about your, and I got to thinking about this last year during the Merry Widows story that you wrote about Joe Kane, and how we talked about on the podcast last year about his 1868 arrival and the celebration there. But I find it interesting that we went 100 years. Until 1968, when Julian Rayford decided to, promote Joe Kane and Joe Kane Day.
Dig him up. He literally decided to dig him up.
I find that fascinating that we went 100 years of our history without Joe Kane kind of being celebrated in Mobile.
Right. And that was absolutely Rayford's point, was that he believed that Joe Kane was the hero of Mardi Gras. He felt like Michael Kraft got too much notice and Joe Cain didn't get enough. Joe Cain, when you look back at when Joe Cain died and things like that, he definitely was recognized as an architect of modern Mardi Gras in Mobile, the grandfather of Mardi Gras sometimes, and that kind of thing. And not to he was also a founding member of TDS, which was one of the three main mystic societies that paraded on New Year's before we even had public Mardi Gras celebrations. So his role was a big one. It definitely was a big one. I think Joe brought us a lot, but yeah, he had kind of slipped into the sands of time, the fog of whatever, and Julian or Judy Rayford took it upon himself to not only raise Joe up, but literally dig the man up, bring him downtown, and build a ceremony around the memory of Joe Cain. And Judy, he even, I sometimes say that Judy engaged in hero building, where he told stories about Joe that he may or may not have happened, but it was all in the effort to build this legend, to build this man that people could rally around, and when he did it, it was a time when Mardi Gras has gone through ebbs and flows, and it was kind of on the wane a little, and that little Joe Cain Day thing kind of caught on and started building popularity for something totally different than what the rest of Mardi Gras was.
You said something a minute ago that I got to follow up on. Would you say in 1968, Julian Rayford, around that time, Michael Kraft would have been more celebrated for Mardi Gras? Now, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole for a lot of people who may not know, but Michael Kraft, the founder of the Cowbellion DeRakin Society, which was our first mystic society in the United States, founded here in Mobile, would you say that he would have been more popular?
I don't know.
At that time?
The cows were famous in their day. The cows were absolutely famous, at least throughout the Southeast. People in Texas, people in Florida, people in Georgia had all heard of the Cowbellions in Mobile because the newspapers were very fond of printing stuff about the Cowbellions. And Michael Kraft was, I think even his role in forming the cows into what they became is arguable. Michael Kraft invented the term Cowbellion DeRakin Society. I don't know that he did a whole lot more than that, but he is acknowledged as the founder of the cows. How famous he would be at this time if Judy hadn't done what he did for Joe, I don't know. But I do know that Judy created Joe Cain Day. Anyone for whom Joe Cain Day is their favorite day of Mardi Gras has nobody but Judy Rayford to thank for that. And for all of, believe me, for all of Judy's faults, he did do that. I think that was a great gift to the city.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. Interesting to think about. We got a lot of construction going on this year, and I know we kind of hit on that last year too, but some of the things that are going around Bienville Square and Washington Avenue. Talk about some of the logistics that are going to be challenging this year.
Well, and these are what we're looking at is like preliminaries to the really, really.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah, the good stuff. The good stuff is coming.
It's coming.
Number one, the parking deck that they're building in the Civic Center for the Corps of Engineers building is taking up, I've been told that there will be maybe 150 parking spots left open in the Civic Center area by the time Mardi Gras rolls around because of that project. And believe me, 100, I don't know what their total is, but 150 is a drop in the bucket. I mean, 150 is just not even enough to park all the people who have to work at the Civic Center during a ball. So anybody who is used to parking at the Civic Center, find somewhere else to go. I mean, literally find somewhere else to go. Secondly, there'll be no RV City. RV City is dead. Alabama Department of Transportation owns that property, and they have taken possession of that property, and they are not inclined.
The gate is locked.
Yeah, they are not inclined to let any RVs park there. I know there are people working on alternate RV sites, but, this is downtown.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there any kind of, these people just ain't going to go away. I mean, there's
Right.
got to be some kind of uprising, and we're going to park here.
I know. I've seen some vacant lots up in north downtown area around
St. Louis Street,
St. Joe's, and around there. I know there are areas that have tried it. Heck, the parking lot across from Government Plaza used to fill up with RVs. They haven't in the last couple of years, it seems like, but they may go back to that. RV City was largely for locals,
right,
who had RVs and wanted to essentially have an apartment downtown for Mardi Gras. I mean, it's really what it is. It's like having an apartment near the parade route. You go out there, you make some dinner, you chill out, and then you go up to the parade, and then you come back, and it's nice. They have a base of operations. It's not really for it was never really was for out of town folks. There's some out of town folks there, but it was largely occupied by locals. So I think a lot of those folks will just say, "Oh well," and leave the RV at home and get their hotel room for ball night and that kind of thing, and that'll be that. But it seems that overall parking in this area is getting smaller. I mean, we got a train terminal coming. A train terminal that's going to take up parking over by the between the convention center and Gulf Quest.
Yeah, right in front of
where the old train station used to be.
Yep.
And they're just going to build a ramp and a shelter and that kind of thing to begin with. But I don't think the train is going to be running in time for this Mardi Gras. Mm-hmm. But however, the cruise ship is back. The cruise ship will be running in and out of Mobile during Carnival, including Joe Cane Day. It'll be arriving and leaving on Joe Cane Day. That'll be interesting. It's been a few years since we've had the cruise ship in and out of town during Mardi Gras. So it's logistics. It's a lot of logistics.
I don't think it's a bad thing either. I mean, our city's
they're
growing.
They're all confident.
That's a good thing.
They're all confident. I look at the guys in the police department and whatnot who are in charge of this stuff, and I'm like, and they're like, we're fine.
Yeah,
we're fine. Yeah, they're very confident.
I can't be a part of the crowd that's disappointed in a lot of it. I mean, we're getting our civic center. Eventually, it's going to be renovated. If we get Amtrak and we got this cruise ship. I mean, it's a
bridge.
The bridge.
When the bridge and the civic center are happening at the same time, brother man, that's going to create some real challenges, I think.
Yeah.
Real challenges. We're going to have a couple of Mardi Gras there where I think we're just going to have to do stuff differently.
Yeah.
I know the convention center. I mean, Mystic Societies were already anticipating that 2025 they wouldn't be able to have balls in the Civic Center, so they started booking the convention center. Well, now 2025 is open, but they're saying 2026, forget it. You're not going to get the Civic Center on 2026. So a lot of them are going to be moving to the convention center.
Interesting. What about new anniversaries that we have in 2024? Do we have any anniversaries with some big celebrations? Then we had, Crew of Columbus a couple years ago and some big ones, but anything you can think of?
The Knights of Revelry are entering the exclusive Sesquicentennial Club, joining the OOMs and the IMs as a 150-year-old parading organization.
Very nice.
It's quite an accomplishment. The KORs are very different from those other two in that they started as a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of the Day Parade or the King's Parade when Felix was first starting out. And because the guys said, okay, well, we got Felix, and Felix has a float, and we can get some guys on horses, but what the heck else are we going to do for a parade? And it started out that they would get, they had lots of fire brigades and police and whatnot. And they're like, yeah, we gotta come up with something. So a few organizations grew up to be in that parade. And KORs, if I remember right, KORs, their first year, they were just two floats in the middle of that parade. But as that parade went on through the years, KOR got bigger. And there were years early on when there was no Felix. Felix was a very spotty thing early on. And we went 2, 3, 4 years sometimes without a Felix. But that parade kept going. And so when Felix disappeared, they said, well, who are we going to put at the front of the parade? And they said, how about that KOR group? Let's put them up there. And so they moved KOR up to the front of the parade. And then Felix would come back, and Felix would go to the front of the parade, and KOR would go back. Then there was the year that Felix came back and didn't go to the front of the parade. KOR stayed at the front, and Felix was behind. Now think about how we do that order now, and you realize that it's been like that for a very long time, that it's been KOR with the king behind them. So it's an interesting, very interesting history.
Yeah.
For that group, and different than the OOMs and the IMs. They were big groups to start with. These guys easily could have faded away like so many of the others that were in the Day Parade did. I mean, they were just groups coming and going. It was a revolving door. But the KORs were a stalwart of that parade, and they grew from there.
That's interesting. What are your thoughts? I know in a couple of weeks we've got the 68 Ventures Bowl coming up, and they usually have a Mardi Gras parade surrounding that bowl there.
Mardi Gras style parade.
Mardi Gras style parade. That's right. Yeah. Can use my words correctly there. How does that parade function? What are some of the floats they use? How do they pull that parade off?
Well, there's a bit of a revamping going on this year. They feel like they'd gotten a little loosey-goosey with it. I mean, it basically happens like this. Representatives of the bowl game come to the parading association, which is essentially made up of all of the parading groups. There are representatives of all the parading groups in the parading association meetings. And so guys from the bowl come and say, okay, it's time for the bowl game again, and we'll be doing the parade, and here's our sign-up sheet if you want to be in the parade. There's no arm twisting, no nothing. And this will make you realize, more than anything else maybe, that do you know somebody who loves to fish?
Yep.
Yeah. That's his thing, right? Loves to fish. That's their thing. There are people who really like to bowl. Bowling is their thing. There are people who like to make little tiny models of stuff and look through magnifying glasses and paint little tiny that's their thing. Well, there are people who parading is their thing, man. They're any chance to get on a float and throw some stuff, they are there. That's their thing. And so there are people within the mystic societies who look at the bowl parade, for example, as an opportunity to do their thing. Heck, I don't do one parade a year. I do 2 parades a year. Some of them are in multiple organizations.
Right.
They do 3 and 4 parades a year, right? Because that's their thing, and that's cool. That's great. But so they sign up, and some organizations have 2 or 3 floats. What you'll never see in that parade is a quote unquote theme float. That'd be one of the new ones that are coming out in the coming Mardi Gras. They're not going to reveal what one of those looks like. What they're going to give you is one or 2 or 3 of their permanent floats. And
they recycle those over and over sometimes.
Well, it's a permanent float, and yeah, those are the ones that usually lead the parade and don't change much. Every once in a while, they say, "Oh, we're going to revamp our permanent floats this year because structurally they need it," and that kind of thing, or we've just beaten the heck out of them and they need a redo. I mean, it's like redoing a hotel. You know, sooner or later, that hotel is looking pretty shabby and it needs redoing. But they put in the permanent floats, and this year they're saying, okay, we're going to go back to a real chronological order. And the order, if I remember right, the order that they're going to do this in is if your organization, where you fall on the Mardi Gras parade calendar, is where you're going to be in the parade. So the Conde Cavaliers will be first. And the OOMs, if they're in it, they're not usually in it, but if they're in it, they would be at the end.
Okay, that makes sense.
They hadn't been doing that lately. At one time they ended that parade with Santa Claus float, but that's been gone for a couple of years, and I kept saying, "Well, where's Santa Claus?" Because I like seeing Santa. Because it's always it's like 2 days before Christmas, man. It's right before Christmas.
Yeah.
I saw a little girl. I'm not kidding. It was a couple of days before Christmas. I saw this little girl. She had on bunny ears. She had on her Mardi Gras dress, and she was carrying, no kidding, a trick-or-treat bag to the Christmas parade, or it was 2 days before Christmas. I look at my wife and I'm like, she doesn't have any Christmas stuff on. And my wife's like, look at her shoes. There were jingle bells on her shoes.
That's perfect.
Yeah. It was
that encapsulates
like this great amalgam of holidays all at one time.
Yep, that's perfect. What are your thoughts on having parades outside of the carnival season?
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
I feel like we kind of miss an opportunity a little bit, in Mobile, especially, we're always talking about Born to Celebrate, and, we're always talking about it, but, I don't know, I feel like there's a missed opportunity there to kind of have some parades, Mardi Gras style parades, throughout the year.
Well, they cost money, and they cost time, and that kind of thing. I love the Labor Day parade. I went to the Labor Day parade this past year, and it's awesome. I look at my wife. I said, I think we're low on paper towels. Let's go to the Labor Day parade. So, but they throw. They absolutely throw. But there's very few actual floats in that one. And I think if you were going to do, Birmingham does a big, I want to say, Veterans Day parade, and that's got a lot of militariana in it, a lot of jeeps, a couple of tanks, stuff like that. It's like one of the biggest Veterans Day parades in the country, and there's plenty of opportunities for that. But heck, we trashed our Christmas parade, but we trashed our Christmas parade, I think, for a number of reasons, one of which is we've been doing a bowl game parade for, 25 years now?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So it's wherever the opportunities lie. I mean, I'd love a 4th of July parade, for example, but gosh, it's hot.
It's gonna be hot. Yep.
It's so hot.
I feel like we miss an opportunity on January 6th, Day of the Epiphany. Don't you? What do you think about that? Is there some opportunity there for us to do something big, especially? I don't know with the.
I think it would take the formation of a mystic society.
Yeah.
In New Orleans, they have the. I want to say they used to have the 12th Night Revelers, but now they have the 40 Funny Fellows.
That's huge.
And I would like to point out that we have 10 more Funny Fellows than they do.
Take that, New Orleans.
But yeah, the 40 Funny Fellows, they get on a streetcar and they ride the streetcar through the St. Charles area, and it's okay. And there's also a Joan of Arc parade on that same night, and that's actually bigger, or it's gotten bigger than the 40 Funny Fellows. But 40 Funny Fellows is much more Mardi Gras oriented. It would take, and I know people who have talked about it, but it would take the formation of a group and the dedication to do the work and whatnot, and really from there it just takes going to the police department and saying, hey, are you willing to give us a permit for January 6th? Now, I will point out, we do stuff on New Year's Eve. Do you want to know why the New Year's Eve groups died in favor of the Mardi Gras groups?
No, would it be the weather?
I think it's because it's so darn cold.
Yeah.
It's so darn cold. I think as soon as the Mardi Gras groups came up and the Cowbellions and whatnot started participating in those parades, they said, why are we going outside on New Year's Eve? It's so cold, so I think that was the deciding factor that killed off those organizations and those parades. And heck, the 6th ain't that far past the 1st.
That's a good point.
So
and it's crazy. It's crazy how much warmer it is here in February than
it's funny because the first Dauphin Island parade is the first parade of our season, and it's almost always in January, but it's on Dauphin Island, and more often than not, I have better weather for that parade than I do for half of the later Mardi Gras parades downtown. It just always, Dauphin Island just always seems to get much nicer weather at even that early.
Yeah.
But so it really just depends.
You never know.
Right, and that's why. And when people say, "Oh, well, why don't you see Mardi Gras here or here or here?" and I'm like, "I'm sorry, how far north is that?" That's why. That's why, because people go outside on Mardi Gras Day and go, "Oh my God, what are we doing out here? Let's go back inside."
You imagine Chicago on February 13th this year. You're kind of thinking about some of these ideas. I know you very much spearheaded the campaign for us to have a Mardi Gras tree and transition our Christmas tree into a Mardi Gras tree. Do you have any other ideas kind of like that you've thought about, that you kind of spearheaded, that maybe hadn't got as much steam, or?
Well, it was more or less my idea to bring those brand new Mardi Gras figures at Bellingrath from the Bellingrath Christmas and Lights thing, which are great. Have you seen those?
Yes.
Yeah, those are awesome. I mean, it's an awesome addition to the Christmas and Lights, and it was the pandemic year, and I said, okay, well, if we can't have a Mardi Gras parade, why don't we get you guys to build a parade in Mardi Gras Park with those lighted things? And there were sticking points. They were afraid they would be stolen, so we had to arrange for security to be there and that kind of thing. But it happened, and it was. I think people, the first night that we had them up, people were coming out with their kids and taking pictures with them, and that was just so gratifying to see. And that was that was pandemic only. We needed something for the pandemic. The other thing I've had going is I've done 3 historic places that are important to our Mardi Gras history, and I think I've got a couple more left in me.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. All right, looking forward to those then, too.
Yeah.
Today's Porch City Plate podcast is sponsored by Table Needs. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode how excited I am to have Table Needs as our first sponsor of the podcast. I want to tell you a little bit about Table Needs. So they are the complete package for a small restaurant, coffee shop, food truck when it comes to having a robust point of sale system. They've got QR code menu ordering, beautiful online menus, super easy to navigate, a kitchen display system. I was talking to Chef Jewel over in Fairhope Chocolate. She uses Table Needs, and she was talking to me about how, when customers place an order right there in her restaurant, it goes immediately back there to the kitchen. No friction when it comes to that. They've got automated sales tax, hands-on customer support right here in the area, not some far-off time zone. So if you're having an issue, it's personal service that works with you, helps grow your business. I was thinking about Table Needs and, especially when it comes to the QR code menu that they have and just the easy menu. I think when I'm going to a restaurant's website, and I think most people are like this, when you go to a restaurant's website, the first thing that probably the only thing you're looking at is the menu. So more than you are the price, the location, even more than those reviews. And some stats back that up. 77% of diners visit a restaurant's website before they dine and order takeout or delivery from your restaurant. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. There's so many, especially small restaurant owners. I go to their website. There's no menu. It's hard to read. So a successful menu in my mind goes well beyond just, listing items and price. Successful menu online can really help grow your sales. So Table Needs has put together for all my restaurateurs the ultimate guide to creating a profitable menu. You can grab a copy. I'm going to include it in the show notes for easy access, so don't miss out on this fantastic resource. Check out Table Needs, schedule a demo with them. Their team's right here, like I said, in the local area. They'll answer any questions that you have. I've got to know some of the Table Needs guys over the last couple of weeks, and so I trust what they're saying. I trust what they're doing, helping small restaurants, small shops, food trucks run more efficiently. So go check out the guide to creating a profitable menu. It's in the show notes. Check out Table Needs. Huge thank you to Table Needs for sponsoring the Porch City Plate podcast and supporting our small businesses right here in the area. Well, we will transition to the next segment of our podcast, and it's called Meat and Three. And always one of my favorite segments is where we've gotten into the meat of the podcast. Now I've got 3 rapid-fire questions for you. And the first one is, what was the craziest food-related item that you caught in 2023?
That I caught? Well, it wasn't crazy. Okay, it wasn't the crazy ones. Yeah, a crazy one doesn't spring to mind. But I'll tell you what, I was catching those Mott's gummies, those little packages of the Mott's fruit gummies. I appreciate anything that you can eat right there on the parade 100%. Route.
Especially it's packaged up.
Right. It's one thing to take ramen noodles home. I appreciate that, especially the Manchurian ramen noodles. There are other brands that here, kid, you want that? But throwing chips. I would like to promote chips as an idea because I know there are groups in New Orleans they do or they used to throw Zapp's, little small packages of Zapp's chips. I would like to see that come up. But those Mott's things, I like the Welch's better, but the Mott's things are not bad.
Yeah.
And somebody was getting a really good deal on those Mott's things because they were everywhere, and I was picking up all of those little Mott's things and yeah.
As a father of 3 kids, I can absolutely appreciate the Mott's.
I bet,
because you feed the kid, they love those right there on the spot.
Sure.
Plus, those things they have a long shelf life. You could take those things home and put those in the kids' lunchbox for school. You could do that for a good month.
And there's food stuff they shouldn't throw. They should. I thought the rice had disappeared. And then I saw the rice come back this past year. Please stop throwing the rice.
Yeah.
It hits the ground and there's just rice everywhere. It's a terrible mess.
Yeah. and I love the ice cream sandwiches and stuff like that, but he's one of those, again, you have to eat it right there on the spot as soon as you catch it.
It's okay.
Or it's gonna melt.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Some
of the refrigerated stuff is a little bit difficult.
Well, they do it right. They keep those things on dry ice, and they don't they pull them out right before they throw them. And yes, you're right. My sister-in-law said, "Oh, I'll eat this later," and I said, "No, you won't. Don't you do that. Eat it now." But they're always at the tail end of the parade, which is a good idea because it's like, okay, I'll eat it now. But yeah, those are always welcome.
You and Miss Mask always have a Mardi Gras tradition where you go to IHOP on Mardi Gras night after the parade. So y'all hit it hard for 6 weeks. I mean, even going back before then, of course, with the magazine. But it's kind of your reward, right, for a long season. It's our give up.
It's absolutely our give up. But we are a couple of great big, just wet noodles by the time it's all over. We're just you see people in marathons that come just chugging over that finish line just barely.
That's you pulling the parking lot at IHOP. Right?
That's us, man. And
what's that meal?
And it's my go-to is the big waffle and the side of link sausage. Not 2 link sausage, not 3, 4 link sausages, not patty sausage. It's got to be the link. And if they're doing it right, boy, they overcook those link sausages just a little bit, so it gets that crispy, burny stuff on the outside. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And the hot syrup. Yeah, Daddy eats that, and Daddy is ready for a long nap.
Well deserved.
We go home and we hibernate after that.
Yeah. Yeah, so don't get in touch with you on the Facebook page.
Right,
until Lent, probably.
Yeah.
Until Easter,
Yeah. By the way, Lent is going to be on Valentine's Day this year.
Interesting. Yep.
So
that'll make for an interesting dynamic.
Ash Valentine Wednesday.
St. Valentine. You've also, I know we last time we came on, we talked a lot about some good WeMo restaurants out there your way, and I know some of your favorites are Baumhauer's and stuff. What are some other restaurants that you've had in the last year that you've been to, some food dishes that you've discovered?
Well, I know you know well, but we found it 2 Mardi Gras ago. Noble South. Oh, baby. And I will tell you that we found the perfect time, because it's a very popular place, apparently. But we found the perfect time during the Mardi Gras season, the thick of the Mardi Gras season, to go there. But I'm not going to tell you when that is because I don't want anybody else showing up there. But we found a great time to eat there during Mardi Gras. And I'm very impressed with Noble South.
Yeah.
I also like Debris. Debris is good. Debris always gives me more than I can eat.
Yes, yeah.
There's just
I love Debris. Yeah, we just had Noel Broughton was on the episode right before this one.
Can you please just have somebody else sit down at the table and help me eat this thing? Because it's too much food.
Yeah,
it's always too much food, but it's great food. It is.
The next segment of our podcast is called Chris's Dishes. That's where I talk about the best dish that I've had lately. And if you got a dish that you want to talk about, we'll do that. But my dish this week comes from La Catrinas de Rosie, which is a new Mexican restaurant that's inside the Insider Food Hall. Insider Food Hall, right there on Dolphin Street, kind of across from Chuck's Fish in that area of Dolphin. And I got a variety of their tacos, the pastor, the barbacoa, carnitas. I mean, every single one of them were fantastic. Really, some of the best tacos that I've had in this area. And they're kind of a new spot. They've been there a couple months now, but they started out as a food truck over in Silver Hill. And then they moved into their first kind of brick and mortar was a gas station in Daphne, the Shell station there, 181 and Highway 90, right there in Malbus. And now they've moved over here to Mobile, and man, they're killing it over there. They really some of the best tacos that I've had, and just really authentic tacos too. So appreciate what they're doing over there. What about you? Have you had a good?
Well, first of all, I know I'm sure you've been to the hamburger place on Dauphin. What's that called?
The Hammer Cow.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that as good as what I've heard from a few people?
There's no doubt about it. It's one of the best burgers in Mobile.
Yeah, I got it.
And that's what we talked about on this episode, this podcast before, where to say that somebody that's been around for a year is one of the best burgers in Mobile almost seems like blasphemy when you talk about a town with Callahan's and Butch Cassidy's and Squid Ink and stuff. But Hammered Cow is
I gotta tell you,
absolutely right up there.
I gotta tell you something. Heroes makes a good burger.
Heroes does too. Yeah, David Rasp. We just had him on the podcast, and we talked about that. We talked about the some of the what was the some different burgers he was mentioning. But really really good.
But
burger.
here's the don't miss tip. Are you ready?
Yep.
At Noble South, it's the Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
Dude.
I haven't had their Brussels sprouts.
I mean, I'm not a vegetarian or anything. I likes me a big old slab of meat, but these things, they're like candy. I could eat a whole plate of them. Yeah. And of course I go, what do y'all do to these things? And they're like, we cook them. They won't tell you what they. I personally think, first of all, they're sautéed. They probably blanch them first, but I believe they're definitely sautéed. They probably the dominant flavor has got to be balsamic vinegar. I'm sure they do a few things like sweeten the vinegar a little, and they probably put like some pine nuts or something, whatever.
Something homemade.
Yep. But oh my gosh, Brussels sprouts at Noble South. Okay. Just go get a plate full.
All right,
get them to go if you have to, but. Whew, man.
All right, you sold me on that. I'm gonna have to go check that out at the Noble South. And you mentioned kind of eating at the Noble South during Mardi Gras, and we don't have to reveal too much there, but it actually is a pretty decent time to go to some of the restaurants that you may or may not otherwise get into during the parade.
Yep.
Places like Chuck's Fish or Noble South, some other places like that can sometimes be difficult. Now, if it's right directly on the parade route, you can pretty much hang that up.
Fat Tuesday, the pandemic year, we ate at Crockmeyer's.
Right.
It was great. It was awesome. I've been going to Crockmeyer's since they were on Florida Street.
Yep. In the bowling alley. Yeah.
And so that was fun. That was nice to kind of reconnect Crockmeyer's with Mardi Gras that way. But yeah, there's all kinds of play, and don't forget on Mardi Gras Day, you can go get yourself some free grits and griots down toward the bicycle shop.
Okay.
That's
right. Yes.
Dwyer cooks up the grits and griots and all kinds of stuff down there.
Yes, and I hear
and it's free.
That it's phenomenal too.
The guy who owns the Blind Mule swears by those grits and griots.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, we got I'm gonna have to hunt him down this year. Go check him out.
Yeah,
that's good.
He'd be a good on the street interview for you.
Yeah, he would. That'd be fun. Yep. Yeah. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you coming on the episode podcast again this year. You're the returning champion at this point.
Oh, it's as a frequent guest, I would like to say it's always great to be here, Chris, and I'm looking forward to my next appearance.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we're going to talk about Mardi Gras 2025 this time next year. Yeah. That's
my brain can't even go that far in advance right now.
That's going to be good. Well, anyway, what date will the 2024 Mobile Mass come out?
January 6th. Our official first day of sales is always King's Day, January 6th.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy, and you'll pick them up. They're always at Rouse's, and they're always at some of the grocery stores and shops and stuff around town
some
too.
Greer's and of course at Toomey's and Pops and. Just we put a list on the website of all the stores you can get them at.
Yep, sounds good. And online, I guess, too, right?
Yes.
Also, if you need a Christmas present gift, we've got a culinary history of Mobile. And there's a whole chapter in there dedicated to Mardi Gras Mobile. And I tied in the Joe Kane Cafe there and talk a lot about the Joe Kane Cafe. And of course, Mardi Gras Mobile in that chapter. So that's always a fun one. And so if you can get your hands on a copy of that, I can hook you up if you need to. So anyway, I appreciate y'all listening, and another good episode, and closing out the year strong for sure. So I appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing y'all in the next episode.
Happy Mardi Gras.